Anthony Scaramucci, former White House Communications Director. You came from the investment world. It seems to me there are Democrats and some of the media who invested in an outcome.
There's no question
that the president was going to be brought down.
Or they're dug in. And so in the investment world, what you learn is that if you get overly emotional or overly attached to your investment, you can make really bad decisions. And so they're going overboard right now. So, you looking through the report, are there things in there that I'm not in love with? Certainly, but let's start with the prima facie thing. He didn't do anything wrong. The president did not commit collusion. So how could you expect him 6 months into the presidency not to be frustrated or to express that frustration and righteous indignation about an investigation that turns out lasted over 2 years? So to me, they'd be way smarter. They want to try to beat him at the ballot box. So you're going to have a super tough time doing that because the economy's so strong. And he's generally very liked. As long as the president gets out there and he lists the things that he's done for the American people over the last 2.5 years, he's going to get reelected.
You've got this new focus by Democrats on obstruction and then, of course, impeachment as a possibility. Does that go anywhere?
I don't see how it could go anywhere. I think the smartest person is actually Speaker Pelosi. She said earlier, 6 weeks ago, no impeachment. She's still staying on that sideline. I get that people are trying to raise money off the notion of impeachment. I get the fact that they have fired up their base with a tremendous amount of anger, and so they therefore can generate revenue and capital off of that. But again, it's another very big mistake because the middle of the country, meaning moderates and independents, have had enough, and the right, it's already so far back in the rear view windshield. So to me, their best strategy would be, okay, who can we put in there that can compete with the president toe for toe on things like the economy, national security, and things like that?
As we go into the summer, the Democrats will be toe-to-toe. They'll be going at each other. What's the best thing this president and the White House can do? What should they be doing to lean forward to with the Mueller report behind them to set the tone?
Well, I think the president's got a real issue at the border. I think and he tried to cut an immigration deal with them before the midterms. And so if I were there offering him that advice, I would say, here are the 5 or 6 things that the American people really want. A growing economy, rising wages. They want this thing addressed at the border, and they want a resolution on the DACA/DREAM situation. All of which the president has presented viable, common sense resolutions to. And so to me, I would just be repeating that mantra over and over again. And I would tell the president, relax. You won this thing, and in victory, magnanimity. You remember Winston Churchill said that? You and I are old enough to remember.
Uncle always points to me. Pete's
no. Pete's a youngin'. You and I are old enough to remember Uncle Winnie. In victory, magnanimity. Be gracious in the victory. Let it slide. Go play golf and hang out. You're winning.
Yeah.
No need to shoot down at these people.
Before we move on to some other topics, Joe Biden expected to get in this coming week. Bernie Sanders did this town hall with Fox a few days back. He's got a lot of energy. How much do you think, as a capitalist, the president is itching to take on a socialist if the Democrats actually nominate Sanders?
Well, I mean, if they nominate Sanders, the only thing I would say to the president is remember what Secretary Clinton said about you. What Secretary Clinton said is, I'm desperate to run against you. Okay, and of course he cleaned her clock. Okay, and so we just always have to be on guard. Bernie Sanders, in some ways, and I know the president used to say this on the campaign, was a formidable guy. Okay, he's got energy, he's got charisma, and he can attract a crowd.
Money.
And so I don't want to be one of those people that loves the president and supports him and says, oh, we got nothing to worry about with Bernie Sanders. I would say, this guy's formidable. Let's amp up our game. Let's explain to the American people why a socialist experiment for 150 years on planet Earth has not worked, and why we have the best strategy. We have the best system to lift all boats in a society. So to me, I'm not saying I'm worried about Bernie Sanders, but I'm also not going to say, oh, that's going to be a no-brainer. We're going to slay him easily. Let's keep our guard up, and let's push very hard.
I can assure you I'm not the only one stocking up on popcorn for those debates, the Sanders-Trump debates. Oh, that would be some good stuff. I got to ask you about this new survey about millennials finding that they're financially dependent on their parents. 70% of adults ages 18 to 34 receive financial support from their parents in the last year. Also, 58% of adults ages 18 to 34 said they couldn't afford their current lifestyle without assistance from their parents. I read this. This is a huge problem. Why is this happening?
I think it has to do with my generation, frankly. And so, what basically happened to us, I have 3 millennials. And so what basically happened to us, I guess our parents sort of let us do whatever we wanted to do, and maybe it was a little scary for us. So we're snow plowing for our kids, we're helicoptering in on top of them, and we want to make sure that we're making their lives as easy as possible. That may or may not work. I don't know. We'll have to see. My kids seem to be doing pretty well, but I'm always pushing them to work hard. And I think the key to self-esteem and your personal success is hard work. Yeah. But I think this is a huge problem, and I think it stems from us. I mean, as you know, they say, the fish stinks from the head down. I mean, we're a bunch of babies. We baby these people. Yeah. And so it's my fault. I've had to cancel. My son's gonna be mad at me. I've had to cancel my credit card. Stop using my credit card, okay, please. Okay, I don't even want to tell you what's on there. When I look at it on my app, I'm like, are you kidding me? Calling American Express. Stop it. Stop using it.
All right, we're going to get you on the motorbike in a minute.
Wait, can you give us one item you found on the credit cards?
Yeah, just one.
Yeah, but it would have to be after dark.
All right.
Do we have a Fox After Dark app? I mean, I could talk to Peter about this all night.
You know what? Maybe later. Fox Nation. We'll do a segment on it. Anthony, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Always good.
The special counsel made clear that he did not exonerate the president, and the responsibility now falls to Congress to hold the president accountable for his actions. Congress must get the full unredacted report along with the underlying evidence uncovered by special counsel Mueller. Congress requires this material in order to perform our constitutionally mandated responsibilities.
House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler just hours after the release of the redacted special counsel report. On Friday morning, he issued a subpoena for the full unredacted version. It requests that Attorney General Barr turn over the documents by May 1st at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. That could spark a lengthy court battle. We're joined by former Department of Justice Attorney James Trusty. Welcome back. Nice to see you again.
Sure, you too, Paul.
So let's take it, the criticism first about William Barr, because he summarized some of the report, and a lot of critics say that was just not kosher. Do you think that's fair criticism?
Yeah, in this case, I really don't think it is. I mean, Barr did not say that it was a flat-out, across-the-board acquittal for the president. He did acknowledge there was some vagary to the obstruction part of the analysis. And it was a 4-page summary of a 483-page document. So you can always parse and say, why did he leave this out? Why did he leave that out? I think Barr is still the credible guy that got him the job in the first place, and I think it's a fairly premeditated but unfair attack on him to say that somehow he tried to mislead the public during that 3-week period.
Now, you've looked at the redactions, as we all have. There's a fair number of them, but it's you can read most of the report without them. Do you think the redactions and their justification look okay to you? Does that look like they're reasonable?
Well, look, the bottom line is all of the bases for redactions here are ones that pre-existed this investigation. I mean, it absolutely makes sense that grand jury material, which statutorily has to be secret unless a judge orders release, you knew there was going to be grand jury redactions in here. You knew there was a very solid chance of ongoing matters creating redactions. And I'd say also classified or foreign intelligence gathering type techniques. I mean, these are traditional areas that you don't want to publicize, so it's no surprise that there was at least some portion of the reports redacted.
Now, Barr said that he's going to allow senior members of Congress and the key committees to come in and take a look at all the redacted material except for the grand jury material. That sounds like a pretty major accommodation to Congress.
That is. It's funny. It's kind of a heavy-handed approach to say, give me everything by May 1st, here's a subpoena, when Barr seems to be true to his word from the beginning. I mean, in the confirmation hearings, he was talking about full disclosure to the best he could under the law. This is a pretty traditional and sensical type of conciliation to say, look, we'll meet in a skiff, we'll meet under secure circumstances so you can look at things that aren't properly before the general public. The Rule 6E, the grand jury material part, it doesn't matter who's asking. That requires a judge. And so somebody has to go to a judge and convince a judge that this type of disclosure, which is very unlike typical litigation disclosures, makes sense.
And Nadler's suggesting he's going to do exactly that and demand of Barr turning over the full report and accompanying materials. Now, if Barr says, well, wait a minute, I've given you everything except 6E, which only a judge can turn over, and I'm going to resist your subpoena because of that, how's that legal fight going to turn out?
Great question, and who knows? But I would say it's going to be a little uphill. I mean, again, when you have
for the
Rule
Congress,
6,
you mean uphill for the Congress?
Yeah. Sorry, yes. I mean, for Rule 6e materials, it's typically because a defendant's rights are involved. In other words, I'm representing a client. There's a trial going on. The witness that's going to take the witness stand previously testified in the grand jury. I'm entitled to see if there's inconsistencies between those statements. That's the type of thing you see very routine release of Rule 6e materials, but not just Congress really wants to know. And the reality is, remember, the report didn't actually have to even go to the public or Congress.
Right.
It was supposed to be going to the Attorney General. They made a political and I think a correct calculation that they couldn't sit on it and keep it from public scrutiny.
And that ought to be something in the Justice Department's favor if it resists. I assume this, though, would go up multiple rungs, and who knows, it could even go up to the Supreme Court.
It could. I mean, obviously, if it gets to a point where a court says under all of these circumstances we're going to allow essentially qualified release to Congress, maybe treating it like classified information, then that could end it without a bunch of appeals by DOJ. But if DOJ is saying no and the courts are agreeing, it could take a while to resolve that.
We have about a minute left, but I want to ask you about the obstruction section of the report, and particularly the line by the special counsel that he said, though we found that did not find that the president committed any crime of obstruction of justice, we did not conclude that he was enough to exonerate him. Is that playing fair, do you think, by the special counsel, to leave that cloud over the White House?
Yeah, that's a tough question because, you know, you could certainly envision a report, probably very stripped down from what we have here, that just literally gives the emperor's thumbs up or thumbs down on prosecution using a reasonable likelihood of conviction standard. In other words, do we have enough proof beyond a reasonable doubt? So you could have a situation where they just said there's not enough to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt as to both aspects. So each side of the analysis is a little different. To say not only is there not enough to prosecute, but there was no collusion is going beyond what some people had called for in terms of the prosecutorial model, but also leaving dirt on the table and saying it's not enough is problematic. It makes people have to defend their own or prove their own innocence when they shouldn't have to. So it's a tough call.
Thank you, James Trusty. Appreciate it.